needs a joke.
Yeah.
Oh, we're on TV.
Questions that have come in from the Mad Day crowd.
All right.
So, on Mark, school board, and this is, that's the school board too. So, city council. So that's what we got so far.
Okay. If we have time, we will,
Yeah,
since Rich is not here, maybe we'll have time. This is the city council.
yeah, so, all right.
Maybe we can ask that for everybody.
Was reduced. What?
But I don't want to get ahead because I want him to have the time. Oh, but Larry needs to know that.
Here's another school board one. We took that out. It's coming.
It's back.
Me neither.
They don't have any.
It's coming.
Yeah, they don't have any say over it.
No.
It's coming whether they like it or not.
Yeah. So I say, what is your position on paying the police? For the firefighters. So I don't think she's here. And I haven't seen her. I would recognize her. And I don't think she's here.
Thanks, Rich.
There's Rich. We were wondering. Hey, I thought maybe there was a fire in San Jose.
There was. They didn't let me go. Oh man, I can't believe I got here.
Well, you're good timing.
Where is everyone?
So just getting ready.
Haven't started
they're
yet.
getting ready to
Good.
organize
Well,
it.
I hope not. I got.
Yeah.
Oh, you were late.
Well, these
I
always.
didn't get a chance to mingle with
Don.
you. Made it.
Them all dead. I think you made them all dead until you're ready to go. Oh, there you go.
We're not ready to go. Are we ready to go?
Larry?
No, you can't hear me. Louder, Larry. Oh, there. Oh, good. Welcome to the 2014 Candidate Forum, sponsored by the Morgan Hill branch of the American Association of University Women. Susan Oldham Fritz. Edfern, we're co-presidents this year. The AAUW mission is advancing equity for women and girls through advocacy, education, philanthropy, and research. Thank you, City of Morgan Hill and Chris Gioni, Community Services Director, for the use of these facilities, which allow us to broadcast the forum for citizens who cannot attend this evening. And to Larry Talbot, who is recording the event on the Government Access Channel. Okay. Thank you also to our co-sponsors, Morgan Hill Life, represented by editor Robert Airoldi, and Morgan Hill Times, represented by city editor Michael Moore.
Thank you, Morgan Hill Toastmasters Christy Davis and Jim Carrillo, for serving as timekeepers. And also thank you to our many AAUW volunteers and organizers, especially Janet McElroy and Margaret McCann, who are our branch vice presidents for program, and Elizabeth Mandel, who created the programs. Here is our moderator for the evening, Nancy Lowe, a member of both AAUW Morgan Hill and Toastmasters.
Thank you, Susan and Jenny. I'm very pleased to be your moderator tonight, and before we begin the forum, there are a few things that I want to make sure you know. The restrooms are out that way to the audience's right, go out the door and then a right again. The restrooms and drinking fountain are there. There are exits on both sides of the room if we need to exit. And I'd like everybody to take out your cell phone and turn it to off or silent so that you won't be embarrassed later on when your cell phone goes off. Next, I'd like to introduce the Mayor of Morgan Hill, Mr. Steve Tate, who has a few words for all of us. Mr. Tate.
This is on. It's on. It is on. Okay, there we go. Welcome to the new council chambers for the city of Morgan Hill. Great new facility that we have. We can fit even more people than we have here tonight, but I'm really, really excited about all the people that are here tonight to find out about the candidates that are running and so forth. We had a meeting here last night. It was a rather lengthy meeting, but this room was filled with excitement. Excitement. There is a feeling in Morgan Hill of belonging, of being part of community. It's a vibrant feeling. There's so much enthusiasm on getting things done that we've started and that kind of thing. So things are really looking pretty good for the future of Morgan Hill. We have our share of problems and we attack those and we solve those. But when we gave the introductory overview of the state of the city back in February of this year, one of my themes in that presentation was stay the course. Get the things done that we've started. Don't start any new initiatives. Don't go off in tangents. Don't do different kinds of things. And we're doing a good job of staying the course, of getting our downtown done, of resolving what we're going to do in the southeast quadrant, making great progress in terms of the flood control that's been a pain in our neck for so many years. So we're making great progress. We need to keep working on staying the course in the city. We need to work on staying the course, I think, in the school district as well. And how we can best do that will be before you this evening for both the city and the school board. So I'm very much looking forward to hearing what the candidates have to say. Again, welcome and thank you for being here.
It's still on. Thank you, Mr. Tate. And now let me tell you about the candidate forum. Our forum is an unbiased assembly that gives our local candidates the opportunity to present their views on topics that are important to the community. It's also your chance to form a first-hand assessment of the candidates before Election Day. The questions tonight will be presented to the candidates by our two panelists, whom I would like to reintroduce now. Their names have been mentioned, but I'd like to tell you a little bit more about them. Representing the Morgan Hill Times is Michael Moore, who has more than 13 years' experience in journalism as a writer, photographer, and editor. He's currently the editor of the Morgan Hill Times. Thank you for being with us, Michael. Representing Morgan Hill Life is Robert Aroldi, who has been a journalist for 25 years. He has worked as a reporter, was the city editor of the Gilroy Dispatch, and the editor of the Morgan Hill Times. He is now the editor of Morgan Hill Life. Thank you for being with us, Mr. Aroldi. I'd also like to mention that all of the registered candidates were invited to be with us tonight. Not all are able to be here, but they were all invited. The questions that will be asked tonight were selected from those sent to us over the past few weeks from the community and from the question cards submitted earlier tonight by members of the audience. And here's the agenda for the rest of the evening. First, we'll hear from the 4 candidates for the 2 open seats on the Morgan Hill City Council. They will provide their statements and answer questions presented by the panelists. After this, we'll have a very brief break, followed by the 7 of the 9 candidates for 4 open seats on the Morgan Hill Board of Education. They'll give their statements and answer questions from our panelists. Now, you have a program that has inside it a bio sheet. So the program is the outer piece. The bio sheet is inside. Each of the candidates is listed once on each of these 2 pieces of paper. The program has spaces for you to write notes if you'd like to on each of the candidates. The bio sheet gives a profile of each of the candidates, which was provided to us by the candidates. Now, just to keep you on your toes, we diabolically decided to put the order of the candidates different for one document than the other. But we know you're an intelligent group, and you'll be able to handle it. So on the program, we start with the city council candidates. On the profiles, we start with the school board candidates. But you can find the city council on the back. So I hope you enjoy using the program. Let's see. The format for both the City Council and the Board of Education candidates will be the same, and I'm going to describe it to you now. The candidates will first give 1-minute opening statements. The seating and speaking order was chosen ahead of time by random drawing. We'll start with the candidate on the audience's right and proceed to the left. That's the opposite of what we said this morning. Candidates will then answer questions from our panelists with up to 1.5 minutes allowed for each answer. Each candidate will answer 3 questions from the panelists. If there's extra time, they may have an additional question. The candidates will not all receive the same questions. Finally, the candidates will have 1 minute each for closing statements, which will be presented in the reverse order from their opening statements. So we'll start on that side and go, I'm sorry. Yep, that side and go this way. Got myself mixed up. It's really important for everyone to stay within their speaking time tonight because we have a lot of people to hear from and we want all candidates to have an opportunity to speak. Now, to help the candidates stay on time, our timekeeper, Christy, will show each speaker the yellow card when they have 15 seconds left and the red card when the time is up. If you see the red card, candidates, you've gone over time. So plan to end your speech before that red card comes up. I'd now like to invite the candidates for Morgan Hill City Council to take your seats on the dais.
Well, you didn't write the names in the back, so this was a test to see if we read it up front.
I think you passed the test. You figured it out. Good job. Our candidates are Joseph Carrillo, Gordon Siebert, Donna Bruce Hachetti, and Rich Constantine. The candidates will now give their 1-minute opening statements. And as a reminder, you'll see the yellow card when you have 15 seconds left and the red card when you get to the limit. We'll begin with Mr. Carrillo. And audience, please hold your applause until all of the candidates have spoken. Mr. Carrillo.
Hello, I am Joseph Carrillo. I lived in Morgan Hill about 8 years. I've had a business in Morgan Hill about 7 years. Anyway, I am interested in environment, and also I lived as a ranch caretaker up in the rural areas before moving into town. So I enjoy creeks and about watershed. I also help the Santa Clara Water District with their annual Coastal Cleanup Day. I've gotten shopping carts out of the creeks for them. So I believe in helping the community with all kinds of community events. I'm also a CERT volunteer. I also volunteer for the Morgan Hill Aquatic Center, and I enjoy swimming. And I also like the plan that the city's putting out of making it look more environmental, such as the upcoming street narrowing project. And I am excited to help the city be more productive and create more jobs within the city and make the city grow. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Siebert.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here tonight as one of your serving city council members and as part of an effective group that puts Morgan Hill's interests first. I'm pleased that my 40 years of service in municipal government, including 4 years on the council, as well as serving as Morgan Hill's Public Works Director and Finance Director, have allowed me to help make Morgan Hill better. Put simply, I'm running to ask Morgan Hill voters to continue to use my experience and expertise to give back to the hometown I've loved for 25 years. Working in concert with my council colleagues and under the leadership of Mayor Tate, I've helped lead the city through the Great Recession, delivered services like police, fire, and utilities to our residents, and helped improve the city's financial position. I've helped keep money here in Morgan Hill that would have otherwise gone to the state in order to be able to make a more vibrant downtown as a destination. Let's keep moving Morgan Hill forward.
Thank you. Ms. Brusachetti.
Hello, I'm Donna Brusachetti. My husband Paul and I have lived in the area for about 30 years. We were childhood sweethearts, got married right out of college, and we settled here, have raised our family here. We had 2 daughters that went through both public and private school, so it's nice having experience on both ends of that, and we've met a lot of different types of people, which led me into more of my advocacy positions of starting out with the St. Catherine's School Advisory Board, moving into Live Oak, the Live Oak Athletic Booster Board for 2 terms, and then through that, working in conjunction with the Morgan Hill Community Foundation and the South Valley Wine Auction, has given me a lot of experience in running boards and how to manage the assets that we have at hand. I do think that Morgan Hill is aiming in the right direction. I would like to continue with that. I do think I bring a new perspective to some of the projects that we do have going, and I would like to add my 30 years of expertise to that.
Thank you. Mr. Constantine.
Thank you very much, and thank you to the AAUW for hosting us tonight, and thank you to the members of the audience. I have to apologize that I was not here earlier to mingle and answer some of your questions. I am a San Jose firefighter, and I am on duty today. In fact, I will be leaving this event and going straight back. And I apologize for being late, but I almost didn't get off work. So, as the mayor stated, we have come through a great recession. And when I was elected, we were digging ourselves out. And through the last 4 years, we have come back even stronger. Morgan Hill has been a leader in the county. In fact, when the county asked to ration water, Morgan Hill led. We have actually saved more water than any other city in the county. We've also had more growth than any other city in the county. I want to make sure that we continue to go in that path. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll continue with questions from our panelists. And I'd like to tell the candidates that since you won't all be receiving the same questions, if you hear a question that you really want to answer but you didn't get the opportunity, you're welcome to use your closing statement time to address a question rather than giving your prepared closing statement. So you'll have that opportunity if you choose to. For the questions, you'll have up to 1.5 minutes for each answer. Mr. Earldy and Mr. Moore.
All right, thank you. First question is for 2 of the candidates, for Donna Brusachetti and Joseph Carrillo. And the question is, what do you hope to achieve as a city council member, and what do you think needs to change in Morgan Hill?
I hope to achieve a self-sustainable city, a very green city, and a very environmental-friendly city. I do know Morgan Hill has a lot of agriculture. I'd like to see more of that. I also like to see more jobs, and I'd like to see a more pedestrian-friendly downtown with more tourism, more street performing. I would like to attract more bicycles, more people walking, all the good stuff, enjoyable downtown. I do like the aquatic center. I volunteer for that too. And I like a lot of the events like Taste of Morgan Hill. And I like to see the city grow and become a well-known agricultural city and a well-known city as a whole. As you see, we have a beautiful El Toro in the background. But I just hope to see the city get well known as a city. Because I want the city to be a very attractive place for people to come to, because the more tourists, the more sales tax the city makes. So I hope to bring great ideas on more recreation facilities, and like the aquatic center is a great recreation facility, but I'd like to see more, So anyway, if you'd like for more jobs, more recreation facilities, a more enjoyable city with more things to do, vote for me. Thank you. Thank you all.
Same question?
Same question. I can repeat it if you like.
Yes, please.
What do you hope to achieve as a city council member, and what do you think needs to change in Morgan Hill?
What I would like to achieve is to come up with a constructive and viable way for us to attract more commercial businesses to our business parks. I believe by doing a lot of the revitalization projects downtown, that in turn is going to entice more businesses to come visit us and see what a great place it is to live and work. Being that we are close to transit, we do have more housing coming in, so it's going to be a very attractive place to entice those corporations to come. I believe we can do that most likely through a tiered tax incentive plan that's worked in other cities. I think that would be a great way for us to get the corporations here. I also would like to see us keep our vitality and our diversity that we have in the city right now. I think that the next probably 5 to 10 years are going to be very crucial in how we do handle our growth, how we do grow our urban limit line and our boundaries as to the type of housing that we do retain in the city. So I would definitely like to be a part of that, and I would say that would be my priorities, along with really dealing with our aging infrastructures and looking at ways that are fiscally sound to be able to afford that and to be able to pay for those services. So I would say those are probably my top priorities.
Okay, this is the question for Rich Constantine and Gordon Siebert. What have you done to bring more stores and businesses to Morgan Hill? Gordon?
What we do on the council is to establish a stable city so that people want to come here. We've worked diligently with our staff to create what we call a sustainable budget strategy. We came through the Great Recession. We laid off a lot of people in 2007, 2008, 2009. Since that time, by adopting prudent financial management tools, we've been able to slowly add back staff, especially in the areas at kind of the front end, which are our planning areas and our engineering areas. So we've established a climate wherein businesses can come in and know that they will have the resources to help them work. We also added an economic development coordinator, Edith Ramirez, and we elevated in the last 4 years or so our assistant city manager position so that she has greater responsibility over the economic development activities in the city. So again, it's creating a climate for businesses to be able to come to work and be able to easily come into work in Morgan Hill.
Yeah, it's dovetailing on what Gordon said. It's been difficult getting stores in, and you just have to drive around and you see the open storefronts. For example, the CVS next to the Safeway off of Dunn. When they moved in their building, that has remained vacant. The old Circuit City. It's difficult to get businesses to come. We can't entice them like other cities can with giving them tax breaks. They have to want to come, and I don't want to do that anyway. I want when a business comes to Morgan Hill, I want them to want to come to Morgan Hill because of the city, not because of the tax breaks they get. as Gordon said, we have created an environment. We have a fantastic staff that's working very hard. I believe that with the downtown redevelopment, when we actually have a nice core, when we've developed our downtown, gotten more stores, help provide business for the current stores that we currently have, I think that will create the environment that Gordon Siebert was talking about that's going to make it more conducive for businesses to come to Morgan Hill. But again, I want businesses to come to Morgan Hill because they want to be in Morgan Hill, not because we can give them a tax break for 10 years and then they'd leave. They need to come here because they want to be here.
Thank you.
All right, this is a question for all four candidates, and it's a two-part question. The first part is, do you think Morgan Hill is being overbuilt with residential development? And the second part, which is also a two-part question, is has your campaign received any financial support from developers or the real estate industry, and how might that influence your decisions as a council member? And we'll start with Mr. Constantine.
Great. Okay. So as far as the development that we have going on here, I hear all the time, we are growing too fast. All this development that's going on right now. The construction that you're seeing right now is actually the backlog of construction that did not go on during the Great Recession. So when the banks started lending money, the developers were able to get loans, and they started building. They're building projects that are basically 2 to 3 years old. We haven't increased the amount of allotments that we've been giving out through the years. So that is not, we are still staying within the cap of our residential development control system. Now, the other part, if we've gotten any developer...
Has your campaign received any financial support from developers or the real estate industry?
Yes, my campaign has. And when I was first elected, I didn't get any money from developers, and then I'm getting money now. So I don't know what that actually means. But I can tell you this. When I make a decision on the council, on the dais here, it's based on what's best for Morgan Hill. And I take that to heart because every decision I make, people think that it doesn't affect us here, but it does because we live here. I live here. So when I make a decision, it's based on what is best for Morgan Hill because, let's face it, I get to get phone calls and emails from people who don't agree with me.
Next. Ms. Bruce-Ochetti?
Again, I do agree to a certain extent with what Rich said because the average housing allotment is 240 units a year. Dating back to 2008 when there was an economic downturn and all the funding did dry up for the houses, most builders did pay a certain amount to stay in the queue, basically, and not build until it was viable for them to build. So it does appear we're having a housing boom right now, which technically it is a housing boom, but it's something that's been planned since 2008. So I think continuing along that path is the correct thing to do as far as the units remaining approximately on the 230 to 240 units per annual build rate. I believe that's something that the city can sustain. Again, I do believe our infrastructure is prepared to handle that. The builders do have to buy in to help support any new infrastructure to connect to the existing infrastructure. So I do agree with that. I think we should stay in that vein of housing allotments. I think it's due to expire in 2020. I think at that point it does need to go before the voters to make sure that we stay along that line. I do think there needs to be some changes to the point system awarded in the program. I think everyone's discussed that over and over. I think everyone agrees to that. And to whether I've received campaign money from developers or builders, I have not.
Seems like there's a lot of building going on in Morgan Hill, and the reason is there's a lot of building going on in Morgan Hill. But it's exactly what Donna said. It's a catch-up from the last 3 or 4 years with many of the developers using their allotments now when the market is appropriate. And I've gone to homeowners associations for new homes, and people are just delighted. We have done something right here, both on the council and you as residents, in creating a community that people want to come to. And I think we should all be very proud of that. As far as the actual overbuilding, no, I don't think we're overbuilding. And in fact, we had an opportunity on the council to rezone some land up on Cochrane from commercial to residential. And it was a little tough to make that decision, but I decided against that. And then recently we've been able to approve that as a new commercial development, plan unit development, and we're excited to see what's going to be happening that way. As chair of the South County Wastewater Authority, it's my job to make sure we have enough sewage capacity, something you don't have to think about, but I do, because we don't want to have the problems that we did in the late 70s and early 80s with our plant being over capacity. As far as funding, there's people that have known me since I was the Public Works Director. They've been kind enough to provide some support. I've told them I want it to be limited in amount, and they have honored that, and it has no influence over me whatsoever.
Mr. Carrillo?
Yes. So I think the city, it's developing a lot of residential, but not enough small commercial spaces. So it's not really developing too fast, but in the wrong way, because people need jobs. There's a lot of unemployed. So I think we need to build more small business shops, business parks for like restaurants, delis. I would like to see a lot more small businesses in Morgan Hill, and I think we should focus on small business development. If there's places, commercial property that the small businesses can afford to rent out a spot and open a restaurant or a sandwich shop or whatever the small business is, I think I'd like to see more small businesses in Morgan Hill because that would create more jobs. Also, I'd like to see more agriculture because that also creates jobs. So the city is not developing too fast. Also, there is something I am learning about, and I volunteer for the city a lot. I volunteer for the Aquatic Center. I'm a CERT member, Community Emergency Response Team. And when you're volunteer, you have less conflict of interest to worry about. Plus, I'd have more time to spend on city council. So I would be the more standing up for the people and trying to create a lot of fun, a lot of jobs, a lot of things to do within the city of Morgan Hill and make the city better as a whole. Thank you.
Has your campaign received any financial support from developers or?
No, and that's good because, lobbyists influence politics too much. So I hope, even though I haven't received any support, I hope the other candidates are the same way, because I just believe in money should stay out of politics, should be based on votes and not influenced by lobbyists.
Thank you. This next question is for Donna Brusachetti and Joseph. We'll start with you, Donna. What should be done with the city's proposed southeast quadrant land use and agricultural preservation plan?
Oh, boy. Just a small little thing. There's so many things that encompass the SEQ, and it's a hot button right now with people as far as discussing it. Right now, there are so many questions. It's a very fluid situation. There are 3 major landowners that are involved in it. There's a lot of things that have to happen. The city has a fantastic plan for it as far as all of our sports fields that are being planned there. There is a residential area planned, but where the city wants it to go and where the county wants it to go are a sticking point. So I think that's going to be a little bit of a fight seeing that go on. I do think we've got the right idea. I think if this is handled right, that Morgan Hill could put in a facility that could handle all of the different sports fields, keeping open space and becoming a mecca for sports and having tournaments for the youth unparalleled in the state. So I think the potential there is tremendous. I think the part that's going to be very sticky is the mitigation of and preservation of the annexation of the farmlands into the new urban limit line, and this is where things really get sticky. I think we're looking at years of really getting this decided, but that's part of why I decided to join the election, is that these decisions are important now. They're not going to happen for many years. We're looking at probably 10 years into the future for any of these to actually be implemented, but the decision-making process is very important right now.
Thank you. Joseph?
I think that preserving the agriculture and the southeast quadrant would really help the city, but I thought there should be ways the city could use that. How about a city farm? Because when it's in the city annexation, when it's part of the city, if we keep it agricultural zoning, well, we don't want a farm that's just dry and not growing anything. We want a farm that's actually growing stuff. And I was thinking, well, it'd really be a benefit to have a public farm. That way, if there's ever an emergency or something like that, the city has enough food to sustain with their own farming. It would create jobs for the city, and it'd also create a backup food supply. So I do believe it is a good idea. to annex that southeast quadrant and preserve it for agricultural, but as long as the agricultural is actually being used for agriculture, in other words, growing stuff. So I know there is temptations, but that's kind of a private community farm. I'd like to see a more public one that has more crops, more vegetables, so we know we have local produce in the area. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question is for the two incumbents, and we'll ask Mr. Siebert to go first this time. Would you support taxing residents to gain needed funds to improve the city's roads and streets infrastructure?
Thanks for setting that one up. Y'all know me, I'm a civil engineer. Infrastructure has been my thing for 40 years. What I support are voter-approved funding. I think it's desperately needed, and I'm hoping that over the next 2 to 4 years, we can be transparent in what our needs are in the city. Right now, I think the latest numbers I've seen, we have something like a $17 million backlog. $17 million sounds like a lot of money, but all you have to do is drive on Watsonville Road, and you know what $17 million backlog feels like, in your rump. I've had to replace the shocks on my truck. So do I support funding for infrastructure? Absolutely. Should it be by the residents? Yes. I would do it with a blue ribbon committee to start with to do the investigation. I'd probably do a process whereby it would be time limited. It would have an oversight board. It would have audits annually, and we'd be able to demonstrate that we're actually able to deliver what the community needs.
Got any firefighter questions?
Ask for something in music.
Yeah, there you go. Yes, we do need money for our infrastructure. And I think it's, with all due respect to my colleague, I think it's so easy to go to the voters and ask for money. But money's tight. We have a surplus here in Morgan Hill, but and I believe it's around anywhere between 22 and 25% right now, but we're talking about $13 million. That's not that much money. So when you say we have a surplus of 25%, you have to put it in that context. So we just can't use our reserves to better our streets. So the money has to come from somewhere. We had a report a couple meetings ago that we could borrow against our reserves. That may be an option. I want to be careful when we go to the voters and ask for money. It is also true that here in Morgan Hill, we're one of the least taxed. If you look at all the other 15 cities, we're one of the least taxed when it comes to asking the voters to come up with money for things like police, fire, roads, water, and et cetera. So again, we do need a revenue source. I think we just need to be careful in how we go about it. And if we do need to go to the voters, obviously, I would rather have that than say we're going to take money away from them, whether it be into a property tax or anything like that. But yeah, I think we've got to be careful when it comes to where we get the money from that. Thank you.
Thank you. I think this concludes the question portion. Thank you to all the candidates. Before we move on to the closing statements, I want to thank the audience and the community for all of the great questions you all sent in or wrote in, and we wish we could have asked all of them, but as you know, we'd probably be here for a few days. So thank you for that. Now, each candidate will have 1 minute to either address a question that they didn't get to speak to during the question period, or to give your closing statement. And we'll start with Mr. Constantine.
Well, thank you very much. And thank you to my fellow candidates for being here this evening. And thank you again to the audience and the AAU for hosting this, AAUW. Right now, we are in a very booming time. And when I say booming, I look at other cities and the committees that I hold. I talk to other council members, and I hear their woes. And I almost don't want to say anything because things are really going well here in Morgan Hill. And I want to make sure that we continue in that direction. 4 years ago, the people of Morgan Hill honored me with their vote. And I would be humbled if this November 4th if I was given that opportunity again. Thank you so much for your time.
Please hold your applause till the end.
That was good. That was good.
I would also like to thank everyone for this opportunity. This is my first foray into politics, so it's been nerve-wracking, it's been fun and exciting and educational. It's something that I don't know that I'd recommend for everyone. But I do feel that I do have a lot to offer. I have a different perspective. I have different types of experience. I've run multiple boards and corporations, and I can bring that expertise to making municipal decisions. I am knowledgeable about all the issues that we face, and being a 30-year resident, I'm passionate about our city. I care where we're going, and I think I would be very good at representing the people of Morgan Hill. Thank you. Thank you.
It's hard not to clap when you hear thank you.
Thanks also to the AAUW and the other sponsors, and to you, the voters, for this opportunity and taking your time. I'm glad to share some of my accomplishments, including increasing the reliability of our water supply. Excuse me, I may need some. Finishing Butterfield Boulevard, increasing the city's budget reserves, and fostering transparency in our financial reporting to keep you better informed. If given the opportunity to serve another term, I will continue to work cooperatively with my colleagues and city staff to improve Morgan Hill. I'd like to see us continue to improve public safety, to fix our roads, to expand recreational opportunities and arts opportunities, support local businesses, maintain financial prudence, and make good land use decisions. I'm Gordon Siebert, and I ask for your vote so I can continue my public service to you.
Very nice.
Hi, I'm Joseph Carrillo, and thank all of you. Thank the AAUW, and I thank all the citizens of Morgan Hill, not just the ones here, but all the ones on the hills and everything. I hope you'll vote for me this election because I will bring a lot of great ideas to the city. I will help with create more jobs, more agriculture, mostly public safety for pedestrian and bikes, because we need more bike trails, more roads, make it a friendlier place and a more slow downtown instead of all this high-speed traffic. So I also believe in the city's downtown projects development, and I bring a new view, and I bring the view of old-fashioned hard labor to Morgan Hill. I'll bring back the olden days, and also I would like a more engaged community, and I will be the most open politician. I'd like to thank everyone.
It's time to end.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, time to. I'm a long talker, so.
Thank you to all of the candidates for taking the time to be with us this evening.
Yeah.
I'll take a brief 5-minute break. If you see any school board candidates heading toward the restroom, let them go ahead of you.
Meeting is adjourned.
I don't even know what's on the environmental projects list. That could be.
Welcome back. I'd like to invite the school board candidates to take their seats on the dais. Check where your name is, because you can't see it from the back. That word dais before. Dais. For those who hadn't, a dais is a raised platform with a table and chairs where people sit. So that's what that is. Word of the day.
Days. Spell it.
D-A-I-S.
Very good.
Thank you. Welcome to our candidates for the Board of Education. Candidates are from audience right to left, Mr. Armando Benavides, Donna Foster Rebish, Ann Horner, Stephen Clem, David Gerard, Ron Wolf, and Gino Borgioli. And as before, their seating order and speaking order was chosen at random. The candidates, once again, will give 1-minute opening statements, and they will answer 3 or more questions. If we have time for more, we will take that time. And then they'll end with their 1-minute closing statements. And as before, if you hear a question that you didn't get a chance to answer, you may choose to use your ending statement time to address that question. And as another reminder, you'll see the yellow card when you have 15 seconds left and the red card when you've gotten to the limit. We'll begin the opening statements with Mr. Benavides.
Thank you. First, I want to thank the AAUW for hosting this event or this forum. I have lived in Morgan Hill for 15 years with my wife of 25 years, Alicia Cortez, and our 2 wonderful children. We are active parishioners at St. Catherine's School. Alicia and I both value high-quality education for our children. My mother brought me to the United States from Mexico when I was 9. Like our English learners, who make up 20% of our students, I struggled with mastering curriculum while learning a new culture and a new language. I lived in a single-parent and low socioeconomic household. My mother was unable to help me with academics. What I have accomplished today is the result of dedicated teachers and school administrators and the community support that I receive. High-quality education makes a difference in the quality of life and improves our community. Today, I am a licensed attorney with 20 years of experience. I was fortunate to have caring and inspiring educators who encouraged me to higher education and my advocacy for family and children. I am fluent in Spanish and bicultural, and I will be able to communicate directly with our Spanish-speaking clients. I'm ready to roll up my sleeves and use my professional legal background and life experiences to ensure our children get a solid quality education.
Thank you. Ms. Foster Rebish.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here this evening and be amongst our community. I taught at Live Oak for 37 years, and I was honored during that time to be chosen as Teacher of the Year in 2010. I committed my professional life to the children of Morgan Hill. I'm running for the school board to continue that commitment to serve the students of Morgan Hill. I believe that all children can be educated, and I have worked with all different types of learners. I am a big supporter of public education. I'm a mother of 2 grown children who attended Morgan Hill School's K-12. I'm a proven leader within the community and within the school community. I know how to build collaborative teams and work with parents. I have budget and school finance experience, and I understand the art and skill of teaching. I recognize the curriculum environment that ensures that learning. That's why my priorities are supporting innovative curriculums such as Focus Academies, DMA, and Transitional Kindergarten, promoting math and science and expanding curricular opportunities at secondary, and focusing resources on attracting and retaining high-quality employees. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Horner.
Hello. First of all, I just want to thank everybody who made this possible, the AAUW, the City of Morgan Hill, and the Morgan Hill Times, and Morgan Hill Life. And I especially want to thank every single person who's out there in the audience today, because you are the ones who are going to determine where our school board is going next and where the opportunities are for our youth. I am running for school board. I am very passionate about education. I always have been. I volunteered first on literacy projects when I was in 9th grade, and I've continued to work in volunteer work my whole life, basically. Volunteer work and service is something I was raised with. I'm number 2 of 6 kids in my family. My parents weren't above the poverty level until I believe I was a junior in high school. But mostly in Morgan Hill, I've worked with the Rock the Mock, with a couple of bully prevention programs, with career days, science fairs, and things in our elementary, middle, and high schools. I would love to be of service, having a perspective that others may not have. And if you give me that opportunity, I will always be there for the best opportunity for our youth. And thank you so much.
Thank you. Mr. Clem.
Good evening. I'm a lifelong resident of South Bay and live within the Morgan Hill School District for almost 30 years. Both of my daughters are graduates of Morgan Hill School, and my grandson attends second grade at Barrett, where my daughter has taught for 14 years. My son-in-law is a teacher, my wife is a retired teacher's aide, and my other daughter works in education marketing for Apple. Recently retired after 40 years in the business management, I have devoted years of service in the community as a volunteer at Los Paseos, Encinal, Martin Murphy, and Live Oak. I was on the school site council, the committee to add Sobrato High School, and an after-school detention program. For 12 years, I was president of the Los Paseos Aquatic Club, and I'm a graduate of the Morgan Hill Citizens Police Academy, which for anyone who hasn't attended it, I highly recommend it because they keep the schools and the area of the district safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Girard.
Good evening, friends and neighbors. Thanks for coming out. Thanks AAUW, Times, and Morgan Hill Life for coming out to help us here. This is the most important school board election in our history because recent changes in school funding now give us the power to reshape how we run our schools. As the first candidate to run for school board, I've already been out to 7,000 homes in our district talking about the kinds of schools our kids need. I've heard that you want major improvements in our local schools, and I've heard you. I've developed a future vision called the Academic Powerhouse so that all kids can excel. Yes, we've made some progress in the past year especially, but our kids are only 9 years old once. We have to act now. So I'd like to bring urgency to close our achievement gaps, including our 154-point SAT score gap compared to the county average. Let's better serve special needs kids, develop more challenging courses for our most motivated students. As a psychologist, leadership coach, and college educator, I know how to provide leadership on the board to bring our diverse community together. So let's unite as one community and do the best for our kids. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Wolf.
Good evening. I'd like to thank the AAUW and my fellow school board members. Working with them for the last 4 years has been a very rewarding experience. I spent 35 years in education as a teacher administrator. I have been involved with the Morgan Hill Unified School District in educational excellence for the last 28 years. These are exciting times for the Morgan Hill Unified School District. As a current board member, I have used my past experience and history to provide the knowledge, training, and commitment necessary to lead the district during this time of Common Core and local control accountability plans. I can make complex decisions because of my classroom experience and my secondary administrative experience. I respect and value the involvement of parents, students, and the community. And I also have been active in various community organizations, 25 years with the Mushroom Mardi Gras, the Teachers Aid Coalition. I've been selected Teacher of the Year and Educator of the Year. In 2012, I served as the president of the school board and completed a master's degree in governance from the California School Boards Association. I'm looking forward to again continuing our increased graduation rates, which were 96% in 2013.
Thank you. Mr. Borgioli.
Thank you, AAUW and Morgan Hill residents. I am the candidate that has spent 300 hours each year during the past 3 years inside your students' classroom, working with the teachers to bring 21st century learning experiences that directly affect your kids. I know what works, what doesn't work, and what needs attention. I have done computer installations inside the classrooms, and I have intimate knowledge of the district's infrastructure. All my kids attended Morgan Hill schools, and my grandson is attending Paradise Valley in the third grade now. Like you, I have a vested interest in success in the classroom. I put students first. That's why I have the support of teachers and the parent community. What I bring to the board is insight and a perspective on key issues facing the district today. A voice for the parents in full transparency. Over 20 years of high-tech experience complemented by 10 years of financial industry experience. As a school board trustee, I will ensure that all decisions I make are focused and centered on our kids. Gino Borgioli, a champion for our kids. Thank you.
Thank you to all the candidates. I'd like to remind you all to mind the cards. If you're not used to looking for those cards, it can be tough, but try to glance down there. When you see the 15-second card come up, really try to wrap it up. If the red card comes up, I'll start saying your name. Pretty scary.
Yeah, I know.
Now it is time for our question period, and we'll have up to 1.5 minutes for each answer. If you've finished answering, you don't have to use the whole 1.5 minutes. Mr. Earldy and Mr. Moore.
Thank you. The first question is for 4 of the candidates, Mr. Gerard, Ms. Horner, Mr. Clem, and Ms. Rebush. What plans would you have to close the achievement gap for minority students in Morgan Hill Unified School District? And we'll start with Mr. Gerard.
Right now, we have a 139-point achievement gap between Latino and non-Latino students. There are many causes for it. Part of it is historical. Part of it is due to school funding. And part of it is due to inability, maybe, to focus on some of the causes of poverty, the cycle of poverty that results in difficulty in school. One of the first things we need to do is we need to have programs such as Head Start to start kids off early to try to reduce the gap immediately. Going forward into elementary schools, it's very important to have very strong parent involvement, build programs in for them to get more involved in the schools, pay a special attention to math and English, basic skills learning, and get them involved in the life of the school. I think the DMA program that we have in San Martin is good. I think it should be done in other schools as well. And then I think the achievement gap is not something that just exists for elementary school kids. It goes further into middle school and high schools. We need to do something there as well, particularly to assist students to go to either a university or prepare for full-time employment following high school, because there's also an achievement gap that continues into life.
Am I the next
Ms.
person?
Horner?
Yes. I just want to say that I think that the same thing in closing the achievement gap is something that we will have to do with all our students, and that is to have our focus on the quality education. We do have some programs like Apple Reader in the elementary schools where kids come in the morning and they practice reading to volunteers that are there. That's something that can be done. I hear a lot, and I know parent involvement is extremely important because it's something that has such a great ability to shift the status of the student. There are going to be situations where a parent is not going to be available or will not be there to do what we need to have done. For whatever reason that could be, we still also need to promise the best education possible to those people. I would like to call more on our community. I would like to see more volunteers, more of the talent that we have, collaborate with other people. I'm a reader in a couple of classrooms. I'll be reading and doing some tutoring at El Toro Youth Center later. But I think that this one-on-one, the ability to be with other people, can make a huge difference. And I'd like to see more community involvement and also just more focus. Thank you.
Mr. Clem?
Well, Morgan Hill School District already has some programs in place already. The technology which they're using is the STEAM program, which is science, technology, engineering, art, and math, and that is at PA Walsh. The STEM program, science, technology, engineering, and math, is used at San Martin, and the dual admission program is used there. And Jackson also has math and music. Common Core was a pilot 5 years ago and was started in the schools 3 years ago, which emphasizes more of technology, and it also has the students collaborating with other students, and they learn more that way. This will enable them to compete in the 21st century for the global society that they're going to take place. I think that there should be more interaction between the schools and the parents. I think that's where we slip a little bit, and it's not because of lack of trying. It's because the parents need to get involved more with excuse me, with their child on what they're learning, what they should be learning, and how they can prove it. I think with those three things in place, we can go pretty far. Thank you.
Ms. Rebush?
Thank you. I think that there's multiple entry points in school and multiple entry points at each grade level that will help in supporting all of our students. I think that transitional kindergarten, expansion of class size reduction, K-3 is important. We also have expanded migrant preschool in order to give our youngest learners the support they need. Bilingual liaisons at each site help communicate with the parents. The migrant program is supporting parent education, and they're having monthly parenting meetings. We've also seen an expansion of that parenting program with our English language learners. At the secondary level, I think that career tech programs infused into the curriculum, project-based learning, and also keeping our English language learner classes small so that our older learners that come to our school learning English have more support. And it's also socially and culturally supportive to those students. Heterogeneously grouped classes, 7-12, are very effective in helping students learn language and learn the culture from one another. And it helps students not feel so isolated on campus. I think that the focus academies and using our school database to identify where students need additional support and personalizing their learning using our database is important. Thank you.
Well, it is a problem. We have about 140 different point API achievement gap, 140 points. That's a little bit too much. Our kids.
Wait. Armando wasn't supposed to answer that one.
Oh, I'm not. Oh, I'm sorry.
That was just for the 4.
Oh.
But this one's for you. This is for...
Don't be the guy.
This one's for Armando and Gino Borgioli. We'll start with Armando. Local high schools tend to focus mostly on students headed for universities, contributing to a high dropout rate for students who do not plan to go to college. What ideas do you have to bring more vocational programs into our schools so students not planning to attend college can graduate with a useful education? We'll start with you, Armando.
Well, first off, I believe that when you have kids who have not been up to grade level and who have kind of progressed from in our educational system without the tools so they could be successful in college, I think what it does is it creates a mentality that they cannot go to college. I think the first thing we got to do before we start talking about vocational plans or the kids don't want to go to college is we have to make sure that our kids are moving up through our grade level and they are basically being successful in their academics. What I like to do is, if we have vocational career planning, I have no problem with that as long as those kids are highly qualified so that when they do graduate from college, they have a choice. They could either go to a 4-year college, which is what every parent wants, or they could go to a high-tech industry like the technology classes right now. Look, what happens when our kids try to get into the auto tech programs at the Answer College or any of that? They don't qualify for them because they don't test into those careers. So what I like to do is I have no problem bringing in tech or looking at vocational training, but I like to have it be so the kids are both college ready, college prepared, and they could go into heavy duty in this tech industry so that they could be successful either at a vocational program or at a college, and they should have that choice.
Could you repeat the question?
Sure. Local high schools tend to focus mostly on students headed for universities, contributing to a high dropout rate for students who do not plan to go to college. What ideas do you have to add more vocational programs into our schools so students not planning to attend college will graduate with a useful education?
A week ago, I was invited to Sobrato for a candidate forum, and at the end of my opening statement, I asked, this is a senior class, civics and economics class, and there were 7 of them that came through. And I asked, how many of you have used Chromebooks in your classroom this year? And that's the district's focus is to bring Chromebooks and technology into the schools. In almost all the classes out of 7, there were 0 kids that raised their hand. So we are not even preparing some of our kids now in high school. These are seniors, and they're going to be graduating, going out to the business world and going to college. And we're not even giving them the tools necessary to get out there in the world today. So I would concentrate on bringing technology, and more computer labs, more focus on bringing outside vocational programs into the schools, and really try and get these kids ready for graduation.
Thank you. Next question is for Mr. Clem, Mr. Gerard, and Ms. Horner. What should be considered in addition to test scores to show what kind of progress our schools are making? Mr. Clem?
Did Mr. Wolf get a question yet?
No.
Not yet.
We have 3.
Oh, you got it, okay.
Don't worry, Ron, yours are coming.
Well, test scores are used for the students, not for the teachers, so I want to make that clarified, because a lot of people think that test scores are a reflection on the teacher. I'm not a big fan of the test scores, because I think there's more to... People try to compare the test scores with other schools. And, for example, you could take a school and say Morgan Hill and compare it to Los Gatos High School. It's a whole different set of rules that are over there. There's kids that have different ways, they have so-and-so. So anyway, I don't believe in test scores being that much of a losing the track here. Test scores are that much of a level where you can judge how good the student is. I think there's other ways to do it.
All right, Mr. Gerard?
Yeah, test scores, I wouldn't say they're irrelevant, but they're certainly not the only factor. I think we need to look at the kind of educational outcomes that our schools are producing. For example, how many students are going from our high schools into 4-year colleges? How many students are going from our high schools into community colleges and not able to take college-level math and English classes? Those are also good indicators. There are many kinds of test scores. I think API, the API scores, the Academic Performance Index, has been used for many years to compare scores. And it's interesting because, 42%, only 42% of the homes in our district are homes where there's children involved. 58% don't have kids. And when people come into Morgan Hill, South San Jose, and San Martin and look at where they want to live, if they see low test scores, that means something. They don't come here. Talk to real estate people. That's very important. As I've gone out and talked to people, they are concerned about test scores. So I wouldn't say they're irrelevant at all. But they don't measure the whole situation because there's other things as well. How many students leave our schools and are job ready? How many leave our schools and are able to be productive in society? These are the future leaders, the future workers of our society, of our community. We need to look at that.
Thank you. And Ms. Horner?
Yeah, I think there are a lot of other measurements besides the test scores, not to minimize the importance of test scores because colleges are going to base their admissions on test scores. But I think that what's really going to make a difference for students and what we're going to see is students who are engaged. How many students are engaged in some type of an extracurricular activity? How many students have some other reason they come to school and there's something they're interested in? I did a little forum at BookSmart last week and I asked people what were their most memorable experiences of school. And there were a lot of extracurricular activities. And that's not to say academics aren't important, but they remember the band, they remember the sports, they remember other things that are going to make them better citizens. When they get out of school, what are they going to do? Are they going to be prepared if they're going to community college, are they going to be prepared without having to take remedial classes? Are they going to get accepted in college? Are there going to be CTE programs, which I would support, so that they can have some kind of a path? Ultimately, it's going to be whether they are well-rounded, happy citizens that are able to have a roof over their head, raise their own family, and have their kids live in their community. And that is kind of the goal where I come from being on the board. I don't really have the grand plan for everything, but who we are and how we come to these students, and we make every decision based on, is that going to prepare them better for what they're doing in their future? That's what's going to make the difference. So those are other measures. Thank you.
Thank you. This next question is for Mr. Wolf and Ms. Rebush. There has been a high turnover of teachers and principals in the district in recent years. What ideas do you have to retain our educators and improve morale among staff? And we'll go first, Ron.
Yeah, one of the main reasons for the main reason for the teacher turnover is salaries. There is no doubt in my mind. Last year I was quite concerned with this, and I asked one young man who lived in Milpitas and drove to Morgan Hill every day, and he said, why don't I just teach in Milpitas where I can make $5,000 more? Unfortunately, as most of you know, we are a low wealth district. Now, we can provide all the encouragement with teachers and all the professional training and everything to make them a great teacher. We have a BITSA program, which is for beginning teachers to go through a 2-year period and to become an outstanding teacher. But when they realize that they can go to another school district and make more money, they leave. And that's why most of them have left. We also have principals who go on to bigger and better things. The principals become assistant superintendents, they become directors, they become whatever. And some of them retire. As of last year, 2 years ago, we had 2 people retire. We have been lucky to be able to get really qualified administrators to come into our district, and especially to step into a school like San Martin with the new program that we have at San Martin. So I think we're doing a good job retaining what we have, because if you look at EdJoin is the recruiting service for new teachers. There are now in the 30 school districts in Santa Clara County 129 vacancies right now. Ms. Rebush.
I have to agree with Mr. Wolf that salary certainly plays one role in this. We are the lowest paid school district in the county. We are one of the lowest funded in a wealthy community because it's set on a formula based many years ago. The funding is changing, but we are usually receiving approximately $6,000 per student. We're spending $8,000. But if you don't think money matters in attracting and retaining good teachers and good administrators and classified persons, Palo Alto spends $14,000. Santa Clara spends about $11,000 per student. That's a big difference. I do think, though, that there is a new wind of change in the district. We have a stable and supportive administrative staff. We have a new evaluation system that is supportive of teachers with constant and ongoing feedback that tells them ways to improve, where they're successful. I think that's important. Teachers now have more access in planning and working on curriculum. The respect for their professionalism and their high degree of education to work with our children is being supported. And I think one of the big reasons is you have to understand bad times. We had a lot of layoffs. People are now committed to the district, and we are trying to hold on to, and I think we are retaining teachers for more than 5 years. Thank you.
Thank you. You got 5.
Next question is for all the candidates, and we'll just start with Mr. Borgioli and work down the line to your left. And the question is, what is your position on charter schools, and has your campaign received money from any charter school organizations?
My commitment is to make the best decisions that will benefit the students of Morgan Hill. My priority is to make sure that all Morgan Hill schools from elementary to high school are top-performing schools that are developing highly educated and well-rounded students. This means that the schools have all necessary 21st century tools, highly trained teachers, involved parents, and engaged students, most of all. If all the schools are top-performing and there is still a community that needs a desire for a charter school, then I will definitely listen to that community, because part of my charter as a board member is to listen to the community, abide by the ed code, and focus on the best education for our students. And that's my position on charter schools. And to answer your question is, yes, I did receive money from an organization.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll take the second part first. No, I have not received any money from any charter school organizations. Charter schools, I'm going to take two positions. One, I am totally opposed to the corporation-backed charter schools. We have had several attempts in our community of these schools to come in, one of which pulled out eventually. But to give you an example, the charter management organization in many of the schools that have tried to come into Morgan Hill have had a percent of their budgets at 20 to 30% of the total budget. Our management organization in the Morgan Hill Unified School District is 5 to 6%. So you can see that's about 24% going out of our district. Now, where does that money go? Well, in some cases, it goes to build new charter schools, not in Morgan Hill. Now, I don't want my money going out of Morgan Hill to, as one charter school organization did, went to Nashville, Tennessee, or to go to Watsonville, or to go to San Jose. I want my money to stay in Morgan Hill. The other thing I'm concerned with the charter schools is how they serve the special needs students. We take all special needs students in our schools. I was in a charter school just a week or so ago, and they claimed that in 8 years they did not have one special needs student. Not one. The other thing that I want to let you know is I am in support of a charter school that comes under the district umbrella. In other words, is chartered by the Morgan Hill Unified School District. Thank you.
I've also not received any funding from the California Charter School Association or any organization connected to charter schools. We've had 3 charter organizations from outside the Morgan Hill community come in so far that have been so far unsuccessful in gaining permission to open schools in our district. And we've been targeted owing to the low API scores, especially among the lower income English learner minority students. Our response has to be to have a much more aggressive improvement in the quality of our schools. With a greater sense of urgency to involve teachers in the shaping of Common Core, we need to target the new funding from the state, the LCAP funding, to close the achievement gap. And we have to provide more rigor for high-performing students. We already have 2 charter schools in Morgan Hill, one of which is a very integral part of our community. As far as new schools are concerned, what we need to do as board members is to adhere to the letter of the law decided on charter school applications, especially examining either the soundness of the curriculum or the ability of the charter school to carry out what it claims to do. Those are the 2 criteria. You're quite limited. You must obey the law as a school board member. Why is it that Cupertino doesn't have charter schools? I want to build an academic powerhouse with my fellow board members in Morgan Hill so that the whole question of having alternatives to our public school is not even an issue, and that people who come into Morgan Hill want to be in our public schools.
Within the next 2 decades, Morgan Hill is expected to grow by nearly 60%. This will significantly increase the need for our district to expand as well. While Morgan Hill has plans to support the growth, charter schools also provide a means to do so as well. I would carefully examine any charter school petitions, if I was a trustee, to see that they're presented to the district and would evaluate whether they comply not only with the state standards, but also with the local needs of the district.
And has your campaign received any money from...
I am self-funded, and I haven't received any money.
Thank you.
Yeah, first off, I've received no money from anybody related to charter schools. I do, first, and I also want to say that there are laws. I read the 67-page booklet that's put out by the state, California State Board of Education. It tells all the requirements a charter school must have in order to become a charter school, and then it tells the 5 circumstances under which a school board may deny a charter. So I would abide by the law. I think charter schools come on a case-by-case basis. I don't think all charter schools are the same. I do know that we have 2 charter schools here in town. That said, I think that there's a lot of fear around charter schools, and people are scared, oh my goodness, everything would fall apart if we had charter schools. With the wrong charter schools, that might possibly be so. I think what we need to do, though, is rather than address these as fearful situations, we need to look and see, why is it that parents are looking for and demanding other choices? What can we provide them that's going to make them happy with the education that they're getting, that their students are successful enough that they aren't shopping for other things to do? I think that if we communicate with the parents, work with the teachers. I know our board has addressed some of those things and opened up programs, our STEAM Academy, San Martin Gwynn, the DIMA program. But I think that we need to, it's like when you're looking for a car. Once you have the car that you love so much that you're happy driving it, you stop looking. So we need to really address our academic standards, and that has to be where it goes. Thank you.
I have not received any funds from any charter schools. We have an excellent charter school in Morgan Hill Charter. It's under the district board leadership. They have the same state standards and curriculum and credentialed teachers. I believe in public education. I am very much opposed to the for-profit schools that have been being opportunistic coming into Morgan Hill, being very divisive in our community. I agree, we do not need to operate on a fear-based communication with our parents. When you look at individual student data, and we are able to do that within the school system, you can look and compare apples to apples and see that our children are outperforming charter schools. Charter schools do not serve special needs students. They exit students frequently in a teach-to-the-test curriculum. Students are housed in extremely large class sizes. They do not have credentialed teachers. They are low-paid teachers with large turnover. Many times this teachers paying off student loans. I think we do have choices here in Morgan Hill. The more that we advertise, reach out, and try to provide information to our parents, I think that they'll see that Morgan Hill Unified provides a good choice for their students.
I did receive funds from a charter organization. I do want to say that if you look at the demographics for Morgan Hill Unified School District, we have a 50% now Latino students. The achievement gap is 150 points, and most of the parents that are at the low end of the achievement gap, those are the ones that have lost faith in our district, that they're going to be able to, that their kids are going to be able to receive a good quality, solid education. So under the law, now they have a right to go out and find alternative educational models, some schools that maybe can come in and make a difference in their children's education. Which one would be an appropriate one? Though that's a case-by-case basis, but I want to say that we do have our most 2 successful schools in the Morgan Hill District is Nordstrom Elementary School and Morgan Hill Charter Schools. Those are the ones that have our top achieving students. They have waiting lists of hundreds of students, each of them. A lot of parents want to get their kids into one of those 2 schools, and if they don't, they usually look for alternative choices. We do have some successful academies right now, and I think that's a good choice for our parents. I'm committed to working with our academies to make sure that that the district, in fact, is going to be able to deliver to all those parents that are looking out for choices that have become, that they have lost confidence in our district, that we are going to make a difference for them. I have no preference for a charter. I have no preference for a school district. Well, I just want excellent schools for all our children.
Thank you. This next question is for Mr. Borgiolo, Mr. Benavides, and Mr. Wolf. Teacher tenure provides job security for teachers after a very short probationary period. How will you ensure that inadequate teachers don't receive tenure and taint the education of Morgan Hill Unified students? Mr. Borgioli.
Currently there's a 2-year tenure for new teachers, and then they, 2-year probationary period, then they are tenured. And so what I would do is provide as much professional development and mentorship with these new teachers. What I have seen in my experience at the elementary school level with some new teachers is they are not getting the support from the district that they should be getting. There's no mentorship that I know of, and I'm only talking about one school right now. And they don't have any formal training program. So I just think that if we beef up the areas and help these teachers for the first 2 years, the dropout rate will be a lot less during these 2 years. And then the teachers, if we give them the professional development that they need and deserve, then they're going to be better teachers after the 2-year period. So that's where I would be looking at teacher tenure. I'll go back to the Sobrato class. One of the students put in a question. I had a bad teacher for 9 months. What does the district intend to do with those types of teachers? So this is a concern not only with parents but at the school level.
First of all, I would like to say that we have to ensure that our administrators are following the present contract that we have with the union. That must be done. If we have an administrator that isn't, then that's the breakdown in the system right there. We have a specific contract that involves, or let's say review that involves 6 major points. And whether you are a probationary teacher or whether you're a temporary teacher or a permanent teacher, you go through the process. You go through the process every year. If that process is followed, and we have let teachers go in this district, there is no question about that. Every year there are non-re-elects. If you don't do the job, if you don't follow the recommendations of a peer person, you are let go in this district. We will not put up with teachers that don't do the job. The one thing I would say, I would increase the teacher tenure process by 1 year. Good teachers are not born. Outstanding teachers are not born into this world. I know when I taught, up to the very last year, I was getting information, and whether it's beg, borrow, steal, whatever, but every piece of information at every conference I went to be an outstanding teacher. And I shared that with all the people in my departments. Sharing is part of the process. We have a collaborative system in our schools, an early dismissal, in which teachers, and especially this year with Common Core, because we have teachers that maybe will fail or won't be up to snuff, but if they're sharing with their fellow teachers, they will get through the process. But we must make sure the process is followed.
Well, that's one of the issues in the regard decision, the recent court case that came out, basically looking at teacher tenure. Tenure means that a person has a right to a job as long as they want it. And I believe that it's supposed to be for 2 years, but unfortunately the decision whether to grant tenure or not is made before the 2-year period. So I think what needs to happen is, I agree, we need to expand it to 3 years so that our teachers who are going to be evaluating, our principals are going to be evaluating that person, really have 2 years. And then at the end of the 2 years, they could go ahead and go on to the 3rd year, but at that point in time, they could analyze all their data, look at what qualities this person has or may not have, the deficiencies, have they been able to work through issues and concerns that they may have. And I believe that that's probably a little bit better, having a 3-year period. The 2 years to collect the data, the 3rd year to evaluate it and make some hard choices, decisions. I really believe that what we have to do is we have to train our principals and our teachers as to the qualities that we're looking for teachers. And they have to be able to go into the classroom to absorb this teacher, to ask her the right questions, to talk to parents about that teacher, so that how they feel about it, looking at the curriculum. And I think that with that mindset where our principals and our teachers and our evaluation with enough time, I think we'll be able to make some good decisions regarding tenure.
Thank you. We do have some questions from the audience, and we do have some time. Michael?
Yeah, and we'll just ask these of all the candidates. As you're probably aware, one of the responsibilities of a board trustee is to evaluate the performance of the superintendent, who reports only to the board. What criteria would you choose to evaluate the performance of the superintendent? And let's start with Mr. Benavides.
What I would look would be the policies that he has implemented or has thought up with. I would look to see what kind of impact they've had on the quality of all our children, the innovative new programs, new models that he may bring in. I would also look to see the kind of people that he hired, our principals, looking to see if they make an impact in our community. I would also look to see the kind of rapport that he has established with the community, with leaders in the Morgan Hill, in our civic leaders, and certainly our community, whether he has a good grasp, a good sense of the struggles that parents are going through, whether he has spent enough time communicating with the community about important issues that affect them. I think parents want to be involved. They want to get engaged. They want to give feedback to our leaders, and I would certainly look to see how engaging he has been with our community. The second thing I would like for him to do is to see how proactive he's been in terms of looking at the law. Education is shifting and changing, and I think that he needs to be somebody who's following through and keeping up with all the new trends that are happening, all the new issues like charter schools coming in. How do we evaluate them? What are their value? Just a lot of things that really are changing in our society.
Okay, thank you. The board sets goals annually, and the superintendent sets his goals. I think alignment of those and holding the superintendent accountable. In my 37 years, there were, I think, 9 different superintendents. So I've seen a lot of different types of persons come and go and be successful. I think revenue management is important, revenue enhancement. A superintendent that is aware of any changes in the law, how those policies affect the district. I think that it's important to see how the superintendent works with employee groups, how efficient he is and able to settle contracts. I think the fiduciary responsibility of the superintendent to oversee and manage his staff from building and renovations within the district to what goes on in the classroom. His relationship with the community and parent groups is an important part of that evaluation. Collaboration with the city. There's a city school liaison group, and how effective are they in working collaboratively? We need some new schools in Morgan Hill. We are growing. So how well is the superintendent able to affect that? Thank you.
So I think one of the most important things to evaluate the superintendent on is communication, the communication that goes out into the public and how well the public has an understanding of what's going on in the school, but also the ability to listen to the teachers and the parents in the community. The other thing is that the purpose of the board is to direct the administration, the superintendent and the administration. So I assume that one of the ways that you would evaluate that is to see that if there is direction given in a particular area, are we getting that accomplished? So that would be an important part of it. And yes, how things work with the public and how things work with the city are also very important. How well the administrative staff is doing. And is information easily available to find out what things are going on and how we can resolve problems. So information forthcoming and available is very important as well. Thank you.
Well, first of all, the superintendent sets his goals before the school year, which one good evaluation would be, did he achieve those goals? But there's so much that a superintendent has to take into consideration, bottom line is the education of the kids, the schools. He has to also know what's going on with the teachers. Is there a union contract out there? You got Measure G that still has funds that's got to be allocated in a certain amount of time, and that's for the infrastructure and technology. If you don't use it in that time frame, you lose it. So all that has to be taken into consideration. As good superintendent, you probably wouldn't see very often because he delegates and has all these things running. But I think the best evaluation would be the goals he sets and if he achieves them. But you can't sell him short. There's a lot of stuff that he must take care of. The bottom line, like I said, is the education of the students, but he needs a good working relationship with the teachers and also the surroundings, the district, the parents. So there's a lot of responsibility. Thank you.
In my professional life, I'm an executive coach and an executive assessor. I assess executives in private and public organizations every day. I do this all over the world. One of the things that I've noticed that I think is very curious is that we've been talking about goals, that the superintendent sets his or her own goals. And in the work that I do, organizations don't behave like that. They actually look at what are the competencies that are required for the position. And I think we need to take a look as a board at what competencies are necessary for success in this particular district. I would think that would be one of the first things that we should really look at. And I also think that while it's great for the superintendent to evaluate his or her own goals, that's a primary responsibility of the board in conjunction with teachers, in conjunction with staff, and in conjunction with you, the voters, in some way. Now, saying all that, I've gone out to one of the most successful school districts in Silicon Valley. I've gone out to Cupertino, and I've talked to their superintendent. I've talked to their board members in preparation for running for this office. And it was quite interesting. I said, what's the secret sauce? Why does Cupertino do so great? And they said, because the board and the superintendent trust each other. So I think moving away from simply competencies and measures, at the bottom line, we have to have a sense of trust between the board and the superintendent.
I would like to say that having worked like Ms. Rubich under many different superintendents, I have those formal things that I would look at, and then I have those things that I've experienced through the years that make a really good superintendent. First of all, but there's a new twist to the whole thing this year. We have the local control accountability plan, and the superintendent is responsible for making sure that we would follow the three major goals that we have in this district. And the first major goal is that all students are prepared for college and career readiness. What is the superintendent doing to see that that is being done in his school district? Secondly, parents need to be engaged more. What is the superintendent doing there? The third thing, the students need to be engaged more. Are we hiring more counselors? What has he done with this? The next thing, the superintendent's goals. We need to have an updated quarterly report on what the superintendent has done to follow through with his particular goals. The superintendent is the face of the school district. He has to be visible in his school district, all over, all the time. The next thing is, I think it's very important that when a big problem, maybe it's something, there has to be a school shutdown for whatever reason, that superintendent meets that problem heads on and has informed the board immediately what that problem is. Because you and the community are going to come to us and say, hey, I heard that. So I want that superintendent to be a heads up. I could probably list 30 other things. Thank you.
The superintendent and the board have some obligations to the community, and that is to listen to the community and, above all, provide first-class education for the students. And so we have to bring this back to the kids. How well is the superintendent providing services, educational services to our kids. And I cited an example at the high school level where I don't feel that the kids are being prepared to go out into the business world. And so Ron just cited the LCAP program is supposed to provide that. So if you look at just those two, that's not a good mark for the superintendent. So I look for a superintendent to really listen to the community and the board to be the voice of that community. I would like the superintendent to be collaborative with the city and outside the city to find ways on how to bring, for example, different vocational programs that maybe we don't have. And I think the rapport with the community right now, I spoke to about 700 parents this past year, and the rapport with the community and the words from the parents are, we've lost confidence in the district. And that's how I would rate the superintendent on those issues.
Thank you. We have time for one other question. This will be for the entire board. We'll start with you, Mr. Borgioli. Do you have any ideas about how to lure back to the public schools disaffected parents who have taken their children out of our public schools?
I'm sorry, repeat the first part of that.
Do you have any ideas how to lure back to the public schools the parents of children that have taken their children out of our public schools?
Instill confidence out there. Again, the parents have lost confidence with the district because they haven't focused on the kids and what's best for the kids. And there's all these other things that the district is involved with, and they're not bringing it back to what's good for the kids. So how do you do that? You formulate at the board level ways on how to communicate to the parent community on what's best for the kids. And what are the desires that the parents want for the kids? Because there has to be something that lured the parents away from the district. And other than API scores, it could be for a lot of other reasons. And we have to find out these facts before we can move on. And so I would institute these types of programs to find out the real issues facing our kids and the parent community, and then build on that and provide answers back to the board so they can, develop these new programs to lure back these families that they have lost.
Yes, in the past few years, we have started new programs at our elementary schools, which most of you are aware of. First of all, in Jackson School, we have the Jackson Academy of Math and Music. And we brought back, maybe not from parents both in and outside of our district, about 150 new students to Jackson School because they wanted to be involved in this new program. The second program that we instituted was the Dual Immersion Multicultural Education Program at San Martin Gwen School. This past year, or this present year, we have instituted at Wall School the STEM Academy, Science, Technology, Engineering, and Math. And at San Martin Gwen, we also have the STEAM program, which is basically an environmental science program. Now, we are not done, folks. We are not done at all. We are going to also bring into our elementary schools other programs, as well as, and I just read yesterday, a program that's being instituted in the middle schools in Southern California that I found became extremely successful, involving students in the STEM approach. Also, I think we need to look at, even though 40% of our seniors in our high schools are going to four-year colleges and 52% are going to community colleges, we need to look and see what's been successful in other school districts in their high school. What classes are the students most frequently enrolled in? And I have many ideas for that. Thank you.
The board, as the leaders of the school system and school district, are the ones who are ultimately accountable for this. I've gone out and I've talked to hundreds, literally hundreds of people in the last 86 days because I've gone to the homes of 7,300 voters. And this is one of the things that is on people's minds. We have approximately right now 1,500 to 2,000 students who could be in our schools but they're in private schools. Why don't we have this problem in places like Cupertino, Orinda? It's not just because of money. You know why? There is a school district in Mississippi. If you want to look on my website, you'll see a story about this. Past Christian public schools, the site of the Katrina disaster a few years ago. They lost one of their schools. They were wiped out. They decided as a school board to say, we are going to build an academic powerhouse. We're going to commit ourselves to excellence. Everything was oriented toward that. Everything was. We can do the same thing here in Morgan Hill. We have some great people who are teachers, great people who are administrators. We have great parents. We're one of the highest income communities in Santa Clara County. We need to bring our schools up to that same level. We're accountable for this. We need to make a commitment to building an academic powerhouse that is attractive to private school type parents, and we can do that.
Well, I agree with Ron that we have programs in place and we're expanding rapidly, and it's very attractive to come to the Morgan Hill School District because you're offered special programs that you can take for nothing. But I'm going to take a different approach besides that. I'm going to go back to my old sales days. When somebody leaves, they leave for a reason. And so my thing is they're in the district, they live there. So what I would do is there's probably volunteers or you can get some people to help you, and you go out there and you make the list and you call those people. And you don't challenge them, you find out why they left. And once you find out why they left, the chances are that you probably have a solution for them to come back to your school district. And that's what I would push. I mean, you're going to lose, once they leave, they're still in the district, but they're just not coming to your school. So you got to ask them, why'd you leave? Well, I didn't get my math program. Well, here's a program we offer. And you make it attractive. You don't argue with them. You just say, here's our benefits that you can use for your children. And then you can probably get them back. You're going to get a percentage of them back, and it's better than letting all of them go. But I agree, we do have programs. You need to go out there and push the programs. And like I said earlier, these programs are getting better, and we're adding more. And the school's getting better, so it should attract more people. Thank you.
So the question was, what are we going to do? Could you repeat the question, please?
Do you have any ideas about how to lure back to the public schools disaffected parents who have taken their children out of our public schools?
Right. So for me personally, I'm wondering that if by the time we ask the question, what are we going to do to lure people back, we are already coming from a position of having to get them. I say, let the parents do what the parents are going to do. I think that if we are trying to lure parents back, we are losing the focus and our eye is off the ball of what it is our job to do. So I think a lot of that does come from people worry about money or ADA money or whatever. I think we need to take our eyes off the ball there, or off that goal, because it's not about the money, it's about the students. Then what we need to do is not just have status quo school goals or be towards the bottom academically in Santa Clara County. What we need to do is, and I'll have to say what David said over there, is work on how we are going to build the schools that we need to have that are excellence, not, hey, we're above the national average here, or we're above this there, or whatever, but really put our focus into what we're going to do that's going to make the difference for these well-rounded students so they come out and they are learning in their life, they're stars, they have a roof over their head. And we're not going to do it by sitting around chasing money, we're going to do it by finding out how we're going to reach these students, how we're going to get them engaged, and what they can do to make a difference that way. That's what we need to be doing, not chasing money. And I know money is required, I get that, but it's the wrong focus for me. Thank you.
I think we've had many parents leave the district looking for other choices for their students because of several factors. We had a narrowing of the curriculum under No Child Left Behind. That law is changing and curriculum is now much broader. I believe it's important to develop the whole child. Parents have gravitated to schools that have art, music, and athletics. We are offering those programs in our school. I think that we do a poor job of marketing ourselves. I think that we have begun that process through videos, more handouts, going to where parents are, to let them know of the exciting things that are going on in the schools. I think we have to tout ourselves a little bit. Our graduation rate rivals that of other high-performing school districts. We are graduating 96% of our students. The county graduates 83% of the students, and so we are very successful. We have 92% of our students going on to post-secondary education, and then we have approximately 6% of our students going into the military. That means we have 98% of our kids focused on post-secondary education. We have expanded preschool. We have transitional kindergartens that are bringing people back in. The focus academies are expanding our student population. We have more national merit scholars and finalists this year than we've ever had. We need to establish more community classrooms for career tech. Thank you.
Well, we also have a lot of our kids going to adult school, that we send a lot of kids now to adult school when they are so far behind grade level that they're not going to be able to graduate. We have also expanded continuation school. So when they're talking about graduation rates, basically what we've done is we have related or moved a lot of our kids to alternative programming for them. I think if we factor in all the graduation rates and all that for all the schools, including adult school, we realize that we have a lot of work to do. I want to say that the best ingredient for getting our parents back is good quality education. A lot of our parents, if they have moved out, if they could have their kids in Nordstrom or Morgan Hill Charter School, they will be with us. And our task then is to make sure we emulate those same factors, those best practices that are being carried out in those schools, to make sure that all our schools are high-performing schools and parents want to come around. So what have I looked at? Class size reduction. We need to go 24 to 1 student-teacher ratio up to the 3rd grade. And my thing is, if any teacher has more than 29 students, and when I went to PA Walsh, I found 2 teachers that were actually in 2nd grade teaching 32 and 33 kids. Teachers, if anybody has more than 29 students, that teacher should have a benefit of a teacher staying in their class. We need technology in our classes. I have found that El Toro does not even have one single smart board in their classes. Technology should be available to all our teachers and our students.
Thank you. That concludes the questions for all of the candidates. Now we will move on to the closing statements, and as a reminder, if you wish, you may answer one of the questions that you didn't have the opportunity to answer during the question period. And it will be 1 minute for each person, beginning with Mr. Borgioli.
My focus is on students first. I have a unique skill set that the other candidates simply just don't have. I have intimate knowledge of the current technology infrastructure through hundreds of hours of working with the district principals and teachers. I was instrumental in the planning, implementation, and ongoing upgrades and maintenance of the computer lab and technology, including software at Paradise Valley. In fact, the district put out a video highlighting this technology. I'm one of the parent volunteers who planned, implemented, and rolled out 29 laptops to all 29 teachers because the desktops were breaking down on a weekly basis. I did some of the training for the teachers on the smart boards. I helped plan and install the wireless Wi-Fi at Paradise Valley, which helped the district do standards testing. Finally, I am project management certified, and I've installed many projects for the Silicon Valley, a lot of Silicon Valley corporations. Thank you.
It is my pleasure to run for another school board term and finish the goals and objectives that I helped get started. During my tenure as a board member, I worked hard to make sure that our students continue to get a quality education. Also, it has been my goal to make sure that our district is financially sound. We have made improvement in lowering class sizes in the primary grades, and hopefully we'll continue this trend in all of the grades. I'd like to thank you people in the community for passing our bond issue last year. It was almost 66% in favor of the bond issue. I have served on this board with no personal agenda. My main focus in my first term has been to let the community know what is right and to emphasize the positive of many of the teachers and students in our schools. Looking forward, we must continue to do a good job in monitoring and controlling the finances of our district. We have many great, outstanding teachers, classified employees, and administrators. We must understand our goals and how we plan to achieve them. We must continue to have high standards in implementing Common Core and the local control accountability plan. Thank you very much.
I work with some of the greatest leaders in America every day, and they've been my teachers for the last 25 years. And as a board member, I want to provide the leadership that this community needs so that we have schools that match the greatness of this community, as Mayor Tate was talking about earlier. We can only do this if we pull together. We need to stop this divisiveness. We need to really step up and do what we can for our kids. I've spent the last 86 days going out, talking to people in the community. People do not understand what's going on in the schools. They're misinformed. We do have some PR work to do, but we need to change fundamentally some things that are going on here. That's why we have 1,500 to 2,000 students that are going to private schools. We have the opportunity to do it. We have some great people in this district. We have some outstanding teachers. We have to support them, but we have to come together as a community and build an academic powerhouse. I ask for your vote.
With experience in business management, service as a volunteer at Los Paseos, Encinal, Martin Murphy, and Live Oak Schools, as well as terms as president of Los Paseos Aquatic Club, I can bring skills to the table that help foster collaboration, inclusive leadership, strong organizational skills, and dedication to my community and district. Being such a long-standing resident, I have developed many ties within the community and understanding of Morgan Hill's roots, culture, and future needs. Thank you again for inviting me.
Great. Excuse me. I want to address just one thing that wasn't mentioned this evening, and that is dropout and expulsion rate. I know that I've heard a lot about 96 and 97% of graduation rate. I do want to say that there are people who may not even make it into that statistic because they either transferred out to another school or other things have happened. So that's one thing I want to address. I'd like to see that lowered down to nothing. I was in the LCAP meetings, and that was a group that I was in, and I would really like to see a big push there. One of the things that Americans with Disabilities Act people came up with way back when was a saying. It's called "Not About Us Without Us." And so that if you are going to talk about something that's about students and you're going to make policies that affect students, include students in on decisions and listen, if nothing else. They may not have a vote, but please listen. I'm here to listen, to work hard, dig deep, listen to what you guys have to say, and if that's the kind of candidate with the commitment that I want, then I want your vote. That's what I have to bring to the party, and I am absolutely there for making that kind of a difference. Thank you.
As an experienced educator, I will bring a perspective that bridges the classroom to the boardroom. When our community collaborates as a team of educators, parents, and civic leaders, we maximize our collective resources, and together we can create successful students. I have been a leader that brings groups together to achieve a positive result. Successful schools respect parental support and a teacher's professionalism. Working together moves us forward to close the achievement gap. I support innovative programs such as the Focus Academies and the dual immersion programs that are being implemented in our elementary schools. Curriculum should match the way the world works and we conduct our daily life. Together we can create those real-world connections for the students by expanding choices at the middle school and high school. I have served on the district budget. We need to continue to dedicate resources to attracting and retaining qualified teachers. My experiences of teaching, collective bargaining, leadership, parenting, and community involvement qualify me to serve as an effective board member. I will appreciate your support on November 4th. Thank you.
Thank you. So when you look at the graduation rate of 98%, and then you have the achievement gap where 50% of our kids are below proficient in grade level, there is a huge dichotomy, a big problem that we're facing. What you're going to find in me is I'm not going to paint a rosy picture. What I'm going to do is I'm going to work hard to make sure that our students and our teachers have the resources and the staff necessary so that we can make our schools smarter and better for all our kids. We have no smart boards in El Toro Elementary School. That should not be happening right now. Who's responsible for that? Our principal, our board, somebody. We have second grade teachers who are teaching 32 kids in a classroom. How can they really be successful with 32 students? I think we need to go back to the drawing board and look what's going to make our kids successful and our teachers able to do their job. We need to drop there's 24-1, and if any teacher has more than 29 students, they should get a teacher aide in that classroom.
Thank you to all of the Board of Education candidates for taking your time this evening. Before we end our time here, I'd like to take a moment to thank once again several people who made this forum a success. Our forum organizers and volunteers, our timer, and timing is not an easy job, our talented multimedia technician who brought you the videos on the screens and who will be showing this forum again on Morgan Hill Access TV, as well as possibly Channel 17, Channel 19 and Channel 17. I'd like to thank the City of Morgan Hill, our panelists, and especially the City Council and Board of Education candidates. And finally, on behalf of Morgan Hill Life, the Morgan Hill Times, and the American Association of University Women, I thank all of you for taking your time on a Thursday evening to educate yourselves and be involved in your community. Have a great evening.
Thank you. Who's got the gavel?